When black lives are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When black lives are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When black lives are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
Black lives.
Matter.
Black lives.
Matter.
Say it like you believe it. Black lives.
Matter.
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 George Floyd.
Matter.
George Floyd.
Matter.
George Floyd.
Matter.
George Floyd.
Matter.
Say his name. Say his name. Say his name. Say his name. What's his name? Say his name. Say his name. Say his name. We're here to mourn and to celebrate the life of George Floyd 1 whole year later. How do we mourn and celebrate at the same time? We mourn the loss, and we mourn his death. We mourn for his family and friends, and we mourn for our countless brothers and sisters who have been taken from us since Floyd. But as my sister Nia said a few months ago when we were out here for Breonna Taylor, it's important that we remember people like Breonna and Ahmaud and George. Their death is not their only story. George's death was not his only story. There are so many things about him that we don't know. He was so much more than just a hashtag. He had hopes and dreams and aspirations, a favorite song, a best friend, siblings, and a daughter. So we also celebrate who he was and who he lives on as. And we're gonna do so in joy and in community. And I also think that there's a reason that we as the group of black women always come out and do things together, and that's because nobody knows joy and strength and perseverance like the black woman. Say his name. Say his name. Say his name. Black men. Black men. Black men. Black men. Black men. George Floyd. George Floyd. George Floyd. And don't fucking forget it. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
New York City, I know y'all got more energy than I. Hi, everybody. So beautiful, so beautiful. I would be incorrect if I do not hold space and say the name of Khalif Browder today and say happy birthday.
Yeah.
So can we just get one happy birthday to Khalif? 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday, Khalif! Black men do not die in this country as martyrs. They are not the sacrificial lambs of this country, and they do not bleed for this country to just ignore them. Black women do not bleed and work for this country for us to ignore them. So many people on Instagram and so many people on every social media platform has been calling George Floyd a martyr, calling him a sacrifice that needed to happen for this movement to be created. Wrong.
Yeah.
How many sacrifices do black people have to make for America to listen?
Yeah.
How many? Because I know George Floyd was not the first man to say he could not breathe. This is not the first story that we have heard. This is not the first hashtag. I remember when I first came out in summer, I didn't even know what the hell I was doing. I'll be honest. When I came out, I knew what community looked like, but I did not know the impact it will have today. So I am proud to say that I stand along every single black woman who stands up here with me, every single black man who has been put on the forefront and been told
that you need to be putting your body on the line for this country, for a country that don't give a damn about you.
Oh yeah. Facts.
We do not want any more George Floyds. We do not want any more Khalif Browders. We do not want any more Trayvon Martins, Emmett Tills. Any black man who is on this country and on this land deserves to live. When you come out and you are showing up, I say this 24/7, make sure you are coming out and showing up inside of your homes too, because we know how everyone's families be too. We know that there are homophobic family members. We know that there are transphobic family members. We know that there are racist family members. But until you tell them that they are wrong, they will continue to not see their evil. I came out here at just 17 years old and now I'm 18. I have transitioned into my college years through this movement. I have celebrated Juneteenth as my graduation with this movement. And I will continue to put my life on the line for every single man who is out there, every single black man, because that is what a black woman does. And no, you don't have to ask us. We still do it, and we still show up.
Facts. Always.
So I just want to take this opportunity to have a moment of silence. A moment of silence to remember that George Floyd's life existed before his hashtag existed.
Yes.
George Floyd was a person, he was a father, he was a son. He had a mother, he had a daughter, and he had siblings. You will remember him not as a hashtag, but as a black man who existed on this very earth. So let's just have a moment of silence, please. Ashe.
Black lives. Black lives. Black lives. Black lives. Wow. What a year it's been. When we think about the video that we all saw, I'm guessing a year ago, and many more times after that, I think it transformed many of us. I heard Nia talking about how black men cannot be martyrs any longer, and I agree with that. But his death brought us all out here. His death brought us together. His death gave us this practice of hope. Now I think in this movement, there's this element of pessimism that we clutch dearly to our hearts. And we do that as black people in this country because we've been failed time and time and time again. We see it with Ma'Khia Bryant. We see it with George Floyd. We see it with Tony McDade. We might see it with someone here today. I was talking to somebody last night and they told me that hope is not a belief, it is a practice. Every single day, we must practice hope in order to make it to the next day. To not be hopeful is a privilege. Black people, black women, black trans women have been through so much trauma, yet we still persevere because we practice hope. Now, there are different elements to this movement that I think some people take differently than others. For example, people are out here every single day, chanting the names, blocking the streets, blocking the tunnels. But there are other people out here that interpreted the death of George Floyd to stand up and change what's happening on a political level. We need to be everywhere. We need to be on the streets. We need to be in every single level of office. We need to be advocating for Black Lives Matter. with hope everywhere. Now, my name is Chiose. I am a candidate running for city council here, right there in the 36th district in Brooklyn. The murder of George Floyd brought me to this campaign to run to defund from the NYPD, to reinvest back into our communities, to not reform a system that people call broken, because it's not broken. It's working exactly the way it works and should be. But we need to defund from those very people that kill people that look like me every single day. We need to be working every single sector of our society to combat the systemic racism that we endure on a daily basis. Now, I hate the go-to that people tell you. I don't know if everyone remembers that white woman in June or July that was holding on, or was like shouting in the streets like, vote, 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 when people were protesting. I hate to be that, but we have a huge election coming up this June 22nd. We really do have a chance to not just reform the system, but defund from the system and reinvest back into our communities. Whether it's mental health, whether it's our public schools, whether it's affordable housing. And I know you don't want to hear from another politician, but we need to do everything in our power to fight for the change that we deserve to live in. The election is this June 22nd. Please look up the mayors that are running in this race, or the mayoral candidates that are running in this race. Look up your city council candidates running in your prospective district. Make sure that they are fighting for Black lives. Make sure that they're dedicating their campaign and their time in office to defund from the NYPD and reinvest back into us. Please. Again, my name is Chiose. I'm a candidate running for city council in the 36th district, and I hope you come out and vote wherever you live against the NYPD. We need it. Black lives, Black lives, Black lives, Black trans lives, Black women's lives. Thank you.
Black lives, Black lives, Black lives, Black lives. One thing we did not do is come out here to be quiet. We've been yelling and screaming in these streets for 365 days, so we did not pick this day to come out here and be quiet. So Black lives, Black lives, say his name, say his name, say his name, say his name. It's crazy because every time I get an opportunity to speak, I too get nervous because I know how important words are. And when you have the privilege and the opportunity to speak in front of people, you must not take that lightly. And I'm a proud member of Strategy for Black Lives. My name is Hercules Reed. And when I think about where I've been in 365 days, it's with them, with a family and community. And not just Strategy for Black Lives. A lot of other names was mentioned of these organizers and these groups. And we formed a community and a family that truly has been there for each other in so many different ways. The issues of our everyday people have been brought to the front of the spotlight, from police brutality to foster youth to trans lives to all of these important issues that should not have been at the bottom of the totem pole to begin with. But it's because of all of you and the organizers, especially, who day in and day out, in the hottest days to the coldest nights, as they said in that chant, took to these streets, getting arrested, not for show, not for fun, but for truly people who need representation. And I'm proud to stand with all of these people and be a part of this movement, because without you all, $1 billion would not have left the NYPD's budget, and they would not be having a conversation still about the reform that we need in the police department all over the world. Even though we still have a lot of work to do, we truly did create change by coming out into these streets. We saw what happened with George Floyd's case. For the first time in so many years, we got to witness what happens when something works in our favor, when truly guilty people get their justice. But this fight does not stop with George Floyd, and it did not start with George Floyd. So we must continue to take to these streets over the summer We must continue to take to these streets in the winter until we get and continue to see the justice that we need. And not that we actually need. We deserve this shit. Excuse me. Respectfully. Respectfully. We deserve what we're fighting for, so the idea that we have to fight for it is actually pretty fucking crazy. And I'm getting angry as I'm talking about it because it's crazy. You know, and I'm gonna close with this, but throughout the 365 days, I heard a lot of people say that the fight was over, that people were no longer marching. And we know how wrong that was, and the different narratives that were spun on the sacrifices that people made for this movement. So let's not forget the people who have made sacrifices for us all to be here, not just this year or last year, but since forever. Our ancestors do matter. Thank you.
Everybody, thank you for coming. Good evening to everyone that's here, whether you're here in person or if you're on live or if you're going to watch this later on. Thank you for coming out because, as everyone has also acknowledged, if it weren't for you all, we wouldn't have the changes that we have to this point, at this point, and we still have so much further to go. I'm Akeem Browder. I'm the older brother of Khalif Browder. I gotta say, I don't feel strong today.
That's okay.
In knowing that, like, what we've been fighting, not just this past year, what we've been fighting for decades, where we've come till this point. I don't know why it's still thought that black men can't feel, but if you're a black man here, and wherever you are, if you're a man, period, please put your hands up. Just know that majority of us is not here, but who is here for us is the women. The black women that's here, our black and brown family and our bodies are here. My mother is not even here, but she would be here. Khalif is not here, but he would be here. It's just so weird that Khalif is not here on his birthday, but also on the death day of George Floyd. I actually feel like breaking down all week. I haven't really had the strength that I usually display when going against the courts, when going against the police, when going against the government that says, shut up and take what we give you.
Period.
Well, we're not shutting up. In fact, Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! And until Black lives do matter, we will be here. In every city. George Floyd didn't just get murdered so that we can just lay down. My brother didn't just take his life. He was pushed. And so many others. How many people realize how close we really are? Not just because we come out to these protests, which brings closeness. A lot of people don't even know Sandra Bland is my cousin.
Whoa.
Our lives is taken and we don't even realize how close we are to it. Tomorrow I might be hashtag. Tomorrow it might be one of us. So let today count. We never know when we're gone, so please give your mothers a hug. My mother's no longer here for me to give her a hug. Please give your fathers the ability, your men the ability to cry. Because that's what I feel like doing today. But instead, I'm shedding my tears through activism. When we take to these streets today, and I will. Thank you. When we take to these streets today, I'm just going to end with this. Please know that we have power, and we get our power from all of you. From my family to yours, just knowing Khalif's story, please remember the words that Khalif said. He just wanted his story to be heard. And for those of you that heard, from my family to yours, I'm grateful. Because I know he is. He's not here to know that the surplus of love that he would have gotten. And so many people just in this 1 week, I've heard mothers that watched their kids or heard their kids or got that dreadful call that their kid was murdered by these bastards. Beaten and then lied and said that, or changed the reports. This is what we need to end, qualified immunity.
Now.
They need to know that they will pay and they won't be back at work because they'll be fighting court cases. Their families, their kids won't have the money that they are blessed with.
Period.
We need to end their reign of torture and terror. God bless you all, and God bless George Floyd. Thank you.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace. Fuck these racist ass police.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
Today I am feeling tired. I am feeling enraged. I'm still trying to process it all. The truth is, there should be 10 times the amount of people out here.
Yes, that's right.
What does it say about a country that it takes the entire world burning for us to wake up? What does it say about a system that it takes an entire world pressing on that system to get accountability? Because accountability is not justice. We have been organizing for a year in the name of George Floyd and so many other people that we have lost to state-sanctioned violence. Freedom March NYC came out of the death of George Floyd. But best believe that the history of Black women organizing, this is nothing new. Before the cameras, we were in the community. And that's exactly where we'll go when these cameras turn off. Let's be very clear about what has taken place this past year. We saw the death of a man and the truth about a nation that we all should already know. Because history has shown us that before George Floyd, there was Emmett Till.
Gardner.
Before Emmett Till, there were the slave ships that defined us as property. And then after that, we were 3/5, correct?
Yes. Yes.
So tell me how it is possible that for 400 years of oppression, 400 years of systemic racism, somehow we have reached a point where one case and the conviction of one officer means that we have undone white supremacy.
Hell no. Incorrect.
We are not going to allow the narrative to continue to be told for us. We are not going to allow you to tell us how to deal with our rage, how to deal with our pain, how to deal with our communities, and what we need. Defund the police.
Yes, sir.
Defund the police.
Abolish the police.
What is so radical about defunding a relic of slavery? What is so radical about saying that our kids deserve better? What is so radical about looking at New York City, one of the most quote-unquote diverse places in America, and you look from community to community and you see the segregation with your own eyes? Look at the budget. What is so radical about looking at a system that was designed as a slave-catching institution and saying no more in 2021?
It works for white people.
We want to focus so much on the destruction of property. So then why is it
that we praise the Boston Tea Party? Make it make sense.
It don't make sense.
Is it because when white people fight for their lives, we see that as patriotic, but when black people do the same thing, we see that as a threat?
Yes. 100%.
When we say Freedom March NYC, we mean freedom from systems. We mean freedom from the history of slavery. We mean freedom from all of the places and the apparatuses that deem us as unworthy. When we say freedom, we understand that this work is not over after a year. When you talk about the Montgomery bus boycotts, when you talk about the work that happened during Freedom Summer in the 1960s, when you talk about MLK, Ida B. Wells, John Lewis, Shirley Chisholm, their work didn't start and end in a year. So say what you want about young people, but we pull up. Say what you want about black women organizers, because we know that y'all have been talking, but we pull up. So like my sister said, this movement is just beginning. And it doesn't matter if you choose to go back home to your bed after this work is done, because we will still be outside. And we know that the power is not in the presidency. And we know that the power is not in the next New York City mayor, because let's be very clear, what a joke. And we know that the answer isn't in funding more police officers for the subways, because that's another joke. But we know that the power is in community. And we know that the power is in the people, because when the politicians were at home last summer during the death of George Floyd, it was the people that took and reclaimed the streets. So I'm going to wrap up with saying that we are committed to reimagining. We are committed to deconstructing. We are committed to defunding and reallocating and believing in not just this generation, but 7 generations forward. Because Beth believed that when they were saying that we should end slavery, there were folks who said, well, let's just try to figure out how we can reform the system. There were people that were saying, what are we going to do about the crops? Screw the crops. It's people's lives we're talking about. So that is the same attitude we need to have about American policing in the 21st century. Because there is no reason why the NYPD should have an Israel department. And so when we talk about black liberation, we do it for George Floyd. We do it for black folks all across this globe. We do it for black women. We do it for black trans women. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to my sister New Paul, and I'll say 2 things. Defund NYPD. Period. Free Palestine. Period. And justice for George Floyd, which would look like him being alive today.
Protest. And then summer 2020 happened and the world changed forever. But let me make one thing clear. George Floyd is not a martyr. George Floyd did not want to die. George Floyd did not want to sacrifice his life. So with every corrupt politician today trying to use this 1 year to make George Floyd a martyr, shame on you.